Mom said the family business under new management. She forgot I was still the silent partner. The text from Mom hit my phone at 3 a.m. Sold the bakery. Fresh start for all of us. My heart stopped. I sat up in bed, reading it 3 more times. Sold? Our bakery? The one Grandma started in 1962? The one I'd put $50,000 into last year when the ovens broke? I called immediately. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. My hand shook as I scrolled through my emails, searching for anything about a sale. 0. Not one message. I was a silent partner, sure, but I still owned 30%. You can't just sell a business without telling a major stakeholder. That's not how this works. That's literally illegal. I threw off my covers and paced my apartment. The bakery was my investment, my future, my safety net. I'd given up a promotion to keep it afloat. Dawn broke through my window, but I couldn't sleep. At 7 a.m., I was already driving across town, my coffee untouched in the cup holder. The bakery looked exactly the same from outside. Same red awning. Same hand-painted sign Grandpa made. But when I walked through the door, everything felt wrong. A stranger stood behind the counter wearing our apron. Mom was in the back office with a man in an expensive suit, both laughing like old friends. She saw me through the window and her smile vanished. I pushed through the door without knocking. We need to talk. Now. The suit stood up, extending his hand. You must be the daughter. I'm Richard Pemberton, the new owner. I ignored his hand. Mom, what's going on? She wouldn't meet my eyes. Sweetie, let's discuss this later. No. Now. I own 30% of this business. Richard's eyebrows shot up. He turned to Mom with a confused expression. You said it was wholly owned by you and your late mother-in-law's estate. Mom's face went pale. The silence stretched like taffy. Richard pulled out a folder, flipping through papers with increasing speed. His jaw tightened. Mrs. Patterson, the purchase agreement states you're the sole owner. If there's another partner, it's complicated, Mom interrupted, her voice thin. I crossed my arms. It's actually pretty simple. 3 years ago, the bakery was failing. Mom needed $50,000 for new equipment and repairs. I gave her that money in exchange for 30% ownership. We had it notarized. Richard's face flushed red. Do you have documentation? I pulled out my phone, opening my Files app contract, notary stamp, everything. Want me to email it to you? Mom finally looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Not shame. Not guilt. Anger. You were never supposed to be involved in operations, she hissed. Silent partner means silent. Silent doesn't mean invisible, I shot back. You can't sell my investment without telling me. Richard gathered his papers, standing abruptly. Mrs. Patterson, this is fraud. I've already transferred $200,000 to your account. 200,000? My head spun. The bakery was worth maybe 120 on a good day. What had she told him? I need to speak with my lawyer, Richard continued, his voice ice cold. This sale may be void. He stormed out, leaving Mom and me in suffocating silence. She slumped into her chair, suddenly looking 10 years older. You've ruined everything, she whispered. I ruined it? You committed fraud. I was trying to save us. Her voice cracked. You don't understand what I've been dealing with. Then explain it to me. She turned away, staring at the wall covered with old family photos. Pictures of Grandma, Grandpa, Dad before he died. The bakery's been losing money for 18 months, Mom finally said. Real money. Not just slow weeks, but hemorrhaging cash. I sat down hard. What? How? After your father died, I couldn't keep up. The recipes, the suppliers, the staff management. It was too much. Her hands twisted in her lap. I took out loans. Credit cards. I borrowed from friends. Why didn't you tell me? Because you'd already given so much. You were supposed to use that money for your master's degree. Guilt punched me in the stomach. She was right. I had sacrificed grad school to save the bakery. But that was my choice. How much debt? I asked quietly. She closed her eyes. $73,000. The number hung in the air like smoke. With my $50,000 investment, that meant the bakery was underwater by more than it's worth. Richard offered $200,000, she continued. After paying debts, I'd have enough to start over. Maybe open a small cafe. Something manageable. I tried to process this. But you committed fraud to get there. I was desperate. Her eyes filled with tears. Every day I came here, I saw your father. Your grandmother. 40 years of family history. And I was the one letting it die. My anger softened slightly, but didn't disappear. So your plan was to sell illegally and hope I never found out? She wiped her eyes. I was going to give you money. Not the full amount you invested, but enough that you'd feel compensated. I thought maybe you'd understand. Understand that you stole from me? I gave birth to you, she snapped, her grief turning sharp. I raised you alone after your father died. I worked 70-hour weeks so you could have dance lessons in college. One time, just one time, I needed to put myself first. Her words stung because they held truth. Mom had sacrificed everything for me. But that didn't make theft okay. I get that you've struggled, I said carefully. But I'm not your enemy. I could have helped. How? You're 28 with student loans and rent. You already gave everything you had. She wasn't wrong. My bank account had $42 in it. We could have talked to a financial advisor. Done a legal sale together. Something. There's no time for that. The building owner is selling this property in 3 months. New owners want triple the rent. We'd be evicted anyway. This was new information. Mom, you're not making sense. If we're getting evicted, why does Richard want to buy? She looked away again. He doesn't want the bakery. He wants the customer list, the recipes, and the name. He's opening a chain. 5 locations across the state, all using Grandma's brand. My stomach dropped. You sold Grandma's recipes? They're my recipes now. She left them to me. To us, I corrected. The business is ours. That means the recipes are ours. Mom stood up, pacing like a trapped animal. You're being selfish. I'm drowning here, and you're worried about some old cookie recipes? They're not just recipes. They're Grandma's legacy. Dad's legacy. You can't just hand them to some corporate shark who'll mass-produce them in factories. Oh, and keeping them in this failing bakery is better? Watching everything crumble? We stared at each other, decades of unspoken tension crackling between us. The phone on the desk rang. Mom answered it, her face going even paler. Yes, Richard. No, I understand. Tomorrow? Okay. She hung up slowly. He wants to meet tomorrow with his lawyer. If we can't resolve this, he's suing both of us. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Grandma, how she'd started the bakery with nothing but determination and a borrowed oven. How Dad had worked there every morning before his day job, shaping dough at 4 a.m. How the bakery had been our family's heartbeat. Around midnight, I called my friend Tyler, who'd just finished law school. Tell me I have options, I begged. He listened to everything, occasionally asking questions. Finally, he sighed. Legally, your mom can't sell without your consent. The sale is probably voidable. But what? But if she forged documents or misrepresented ownership, she could face criminal charges. Do you really want to do that to your mom? I hadn't thought about that possibility. There has to be another way. Maybe. If Richard's reasonable, you can negotiate a new deal that includes you. Or you could buy your mom out. With what money? Loan? Investors? I don't know, but you've got leverage now. Richard's already paid 200 grand. He can't just walk away without losing everything. After we hung up, I made a list. Facts I knew: the bakery was valuable to Richard, Mom was desperate, we were all stuck together. By 3 a.m., I had a plan. It was risky and required trust one wasn't sure I had anymore. But it might save everyone. The next morning, I arrived at the bakery before anyone else. I used my key to get in and went straight to the office. The filing cabinet still had all of Grandma's original recipes in her handwriting. I photographed every single page. Then I found the business documents, the loan papers, everything. Knowledge was power, and I needed all of it. Mom arrived at 8, surprised to find me there. "What are you doing?" "Protecting my investment," I said calmly. Richard arrived at 9 with a sharp-looking woman carrying a leather briefcase. She introduced herself as Patricia Vance, attorney at law. We sat around the small office table like opposing generals. Patricia started. "My client has been defrauded. He wants his money back, plus damages." "Your client was careless," I countered. "He didn't do basic due diligence before buying a business." Richard's face reddened. "Your mother provided all necessary documents." "Forged documents," I said, looking at Mom. She flinched. "Which makes her guilty, not you." "But I'm not interested in pressing charges." Patricia leaned forward. "What do you want?" "I want to restructure the deal. Richard still gets what he wants, but legally. With me at the table." "Absolutely not," Richard said. "I'm not negotiating with someone who actually owns part of what you're buying." I interrupted. "You need my signature, Richard. The recipes, the name, all of it requires my consent." Patricia whispered something to Richard. He shook his head, but she persisted. Finally, he looked at me. "What's your proposal?" I pulled out the notes I'd made at 3 a.m. "You want 5 bakery locations using our brand and recipes. Fine. But I want 20% equity in the new company, and Mom keeps 10%. We become partners, not sellers." "That's insane," Richard sputtered. "Why would I give you 30% of my company?" "Because without our recipes and brand reputation, you have nothing. You're not a baker, Richard. You're a businessman. You need us." Mom stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Patricia made more notes, her expression neutral. "My client invested substantial capital. 20% might be reasonable, but 30% is excessive." "Your client tried to buy stolen property," I reminded her. "I could tank this whole deal and leave him with nothing. 30% is generous." The room fell silent except for the ancient radiator hissing in the corner. Richard stood and walked to the window, looking out at the street. "I'd need full operational control," he finally said. "You two don't interfere with business decisions." "Agreed," I said. "But we retain recipe approval. Nothing gets changed or mass-produced without our consent. And I want Mom's debts paid as part of the deal." Richard turned around. "That's another 73,000. Consider it a signing bonus." "You're getting a goldmine here, Richard. Grandma's recipes have a cult following. Done right, your chain could be worth millions." Patricia and Richard exchanged glances. She nodded slightly. "We'll need everything in writing," Patricia said. "New contracts, new business structure, full disclosure of all assets and liabilities." Of course, I agreed. "And Richard, one more thing. Mom works as head baker at the flagship location. Salary, benefits, the works." Richard actually smiled. "You drive a hard bargain." I learned from Grandma. Over the next week, lawyers drafted new contracts. Patricia was thorough, questioning everything. I hired Tyler to represent Mom and me, splitting his fee down the middle. Mom barely spoke to me during this time. She'd nod when I explained things, sign where Tyler indicated, but her eyes stayed distant. On signing day, we gathered at Patricia's office. The contracts were thick as phone books. Tyler walked us through every clause. When we finally signed, Richard shook my hand. "I underestimated you," he said. "Don't underestimate my family again," I replied. Outside, Mom stopped me on the sidewalk. "Why did you do that?" "Do what?" "Save me. After what I did, you could have destroyed me." I thought about it. "Because you're my mom. And because Grandma would have wanted the family to stick together." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I was desperate and stupid and wrong." I hugged her, feeling her shake with sobs. "I know. But we're okay now. We're going to be okay." Richard moved fast. Within 2 months, he'd secured locations in 4 cities. Mom worked 16-hour days perfecting large-scale versions of Grandma's recipes. I kept my regular job but spent evenings reviewing Richard's plans, making sure he honored our agreement. The flagship location opened in spring. The line wrapped around the block. News outlets ran stories about the legendary family recipes finally available statewide. Our 20 and 10% stakes suddenly looked very valuable. By summer, Richard projected first-year revenue at $3 million. Our combined 30% would generate serious money. Money that could change our lives. One evening, Mom and I sat in the empty flagship location after closing. The smell of fresh bread hung in the air, just like the old bakery. "I never thought it would work," Mom admitted. "When you proposed that partnership, I thought Richard would laugh us out of the room." "He needed us more than he admitted," I said. "The recipes were worthless without someone who understood them. Your grandmother would be proud of you." Her voice caught. "The way you fought for the family, for the legacy. That's exactly what she did her whole life." I squeezed her hand. "She'd be proud of both of us. We didn't let it die." Mom smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. "I'm sorry I forgot you were my partner. I won't make that mistake again." "Good. Because I'm not going anywhere." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the streetlights flicker on. The new bakery was different from Grandma's original, bigger and more modern. But it still felt like home. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard, location 5 secured. Grand opening in October. You two free for ribbon cutting? I showed Mom the message. She laughed. 5 locations. Grandma started with 1 oven in a garage. And now her recipes are feeding thousands, I said. That's the real legacy. Over the following months, the business exploded. Food bloggers called us the best bakery chain in America. Richard hired 30 new employees. Mom trained each one personally, teaching them to shape dough the way Grandma had taught her. I got promoted at my regular job, partly because my boss was impressed by the bakery success story. Having part owner of a growing restaurant chain on my resume apparently looked good. Tyler joined us for dinner one night at Mom's house. You know what's crazy? He said, biting into one of Mom's famous cinnamon rolls. 6 months ago, you were about to lose everything. Now you're thriving. We almost destroyed each other, Mom said quietly. I almost destroyed us, I corrected. But we found a better way. Christmas came. Richard hosted a party for all employees and partners. The flagship location was decorated with lights and garlands. Children pressed their faces against the windows, watching bakers shape gingerbread. Mom pulled me aside near the ovens. I have something for you. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000. What's this? Your original investment. With interest. I tried to hand it back. Mom, you don't have to. Yes, I do. You trusted me with that money for the bakery, and I betrayed that trust. This makes it right. I looked at the check, then at my mother. Okay. But I'm using it to buy you a new car. That rusty sedan is embarrassing. She laughed, pulling me into a hug. Around us, the party continued. Employees laughed, children ate cookies, Christmas music played softly. This was what Grandma had wanted. Family, community, and really good bread. Richard found us by the ovens. I have news. A national grocery chain wants to carry our products. Frozen dough, ready-to-bake items, the whole line. Mom and I exchanged glances. That's big, I said carefully. Huge, Richard agreed. We're talking tens of millions in revenue. But I need your approval for the recipes. This was the moment we'd anticipated. The moment where growth could either honor the legacy or destroy it. We need to see the production process, Mom said. If the quality suffers, the answer is no. Fair enough. Tour the facility next week? We'll be there. After Richard left, Mom turned to me. Do you think we should do it? I think Grandma would want her recipes to feed as many people as possible. As long as they're done right. Then we make sure they're done right. The facility tour was impressive. Richard had hired quality control experts and invested in top equipment. Mom tested every product, comparing them to her originals. She made Richard remake the chocolate chip cookies 3 times before approving them. These are going in grocery stores across America, she told him firmly. They have to be perfect. Richard never complained. He understood that the recipes were sacred, that quality was non-negotiable. In March, the frozen products launched. Sales exceeded projections by 40%. Our 30% stake in the company was now worth over $2 million. I quit my regular job and became full-time COO of the bakery chain. Mom remained head baker, but we hired assistants so she could travel to each location regularly. One afternoon, I found her in the flagship location's office, looking at an old photo of Grandma. You miss her, I said softly. Every day. But I feel her here, you know? In the smell of the bread, the sound of the mixers. She's still with us. She is, I agreed. We made sure of that. Mom set down the photo. I need to tell you something. The day I tried to sell the bakery, I had decided to leave town after. Take the money and disappear. Start over somewhere nobody knew me as the woman who let the family business fail. My heart clenched. Mom, I was ashamed. Broken. I couldn't face you or anyone else. She took my hand. But you fought for me anyway. You saved me from myself. We saved each other, I said. That's what family does. She hugged me tight. I love you. And I'm sorry for everything. I love you too. That summer, we opened location number 8. Richard talked about expanding to 12 by next year. The business was booming, but more importantly, the family was healed. I'd started dating someone, a teacher named David who loved the bakery's sourdough. Mom had joined a grief support group and was finally processing Dad's death. Life felt stable for the first time in years. One evening, an elderly woman came into the flagship location just before closing. She walked slowly, leaning on a cane. Mom was wiping down counters and looked up. The woman's eyes filled with tears. I'm Helen's sister, she said quietly. Your Aunt June? Mom gasped. They hadn't spoken in 15 years after a family argument nobody could quite remember. June nodded. I heard about what you're doing here. Making Helen's recipes available to everyone. It's beautiful. Mom came around the counter and hugged her aunt. They both cried. I hung back, giving them space. I'm sorry we lost so much time, June said. Family shouldn't be apart. No, Mom agreed. It shouldn't. June became a regular presence at the bakery. She had stories about Grandma we'd never heard, recipes we'd forgotten existed. She even helped develop new products, including a lemon bar that became our bestseller. By autumn, the business was worth $5 million. Richard approached us about selling to a larger corporation for $20 million. We'd all be set for life, he said. You two would walk away with $6 million. Mom and I didn't even need to discuss it. No, we said simultaneously. Richard blinked. But, that's life-changing money. This bakery isn't for sale, I explained. Not to you, not to anyone. It's family. I thought you understood that when we became partners, Mom added gently. To his credit, Richard nodded. I do now. I'll turn them down. The holidays came again. Our second Christmas as a successful chain. We donated thousands of baked goods to shelters and food banks, something Grandma had always done. I stood in the flagship location on Christmas Eve, watching families line up for last-minute treats. Mom appeared beside me, flour dusting her hair. You know what I'm grateful for? She asked. What? That text I sent you. The one that started everything. I laughed. You're grateful you committed fraud? I'm grateful you didn't let me get away with it. You forced me to face my problems instead of running. You reminded me what family means. I put my arm around her. We make a good team. The best, she agreed. David joined us, carrying hot chocolate for everyone. Aunt June was teaching new bakers how to braid challah. Richard was helping a kid pick out cookies for Santa. Outside, snow began to fall, dusting the red awning with white. The bakery glowed warm against the winter night, inviting people in from the cold. This was what Grandma had built. Not just a business, but a place where family and community intersected. Where people came not just for bread, but for connection. I'd almost lost it all because of pride and secrets. Mom had almost lost it because of shame and fear. But we'd found our way back to each other, stronger than before. My phone buzzed. Another text from Mom, even though she was standing right next to me. I opened it, curious. It read, "Thank you for being my partner. Not just silent, but strong. Love you forever." I looked at her. She was smiling, that real smile I'd missed for so long. I typed back, "Thank you for teaching me to fight for what matters. Love you more." We stood together in the bakery, surrounded by the smell of cinnamon and the sound of laughter. The business was thriving. The family was whole. The legacy was secure. And I was no longer just the silent partner. I was the one who'd saved us all by refusing to stay silent when it mattered most. Mom squeezed my hand. Ready for year 3? She asked. I grinned. Bring it on.